There is a LEGO store trade with over 300 stores around the country. They're the best place for LEGO fans to buy, sell, and trade their LEGOs. You can throw your birthday party there, and they're probably in your local strip mall. And one of their stores just stole a family's $200,000 LEGO collection. That is not clickbait. That actually happened. And here's what really got me. Was it just one bad store owner doing something awful? Or is this what happens when a company builds a system that is based on taking advantage of LEGO fans? Because the more I dug into Bricks and minifigures, the more I kept finding the same problem over and over again. The $200,000 story is just the worst version of something that's been happening over a long period of time. So today we're going to break it all down. The theft, the prices that don't make sense, and a trading system that's built to basically scam you. Stick around because by the end of this video you're going to see why this stuff keeps happening and why the company keeps getting away with it. Okay, let's start with the story that really put this thing on my radar. It all started with this collector, an older gentleman who spent his life building up a $200,000 LEGO Star Wars collection. Due to some medical expenses and some other reasons, his son Brian needed to sell it. Because Bricks and Minifigures is everywhere, and it's one of the most known third-party LEGO sets, Brian decided to start there. Brian walked in and wrote a contract that basically stated his sets were still his own, but Bricks and Minifigures was going to sell them and take a cut of what they sell and then give the rest of the money back to him. So the sets weren't actually Bricks and Minifigures, they were still Brian's. This whole Bricks and Minifigures was packed with his father's sets. Wall to wall, they had to pull more shelves in just to fill with Brian's sets. And this is where everything went wrong. The woman who owned the store originally, who he wrote the contract with, had to move out of country. So Bricks and Minifigures Corporate found a new owner for the store. The new owner's name was Josh. He showed up randomly one night and told the old owner just to get out. No warning, no nothing. She couldn't even take inventory of what she had. There was security camera footage of the incident. The footage basically showed the old owner telling the new owners that this collection was Brian's and that it hasn't been sold yet and he hasn't been paid for what his collection was worth. And the Bricks and Minifigures Corporate that was there to kick her out told her that's a corporate thing, not her business. Brian called the store, he had the contract, he had pictures of all his sets, and the new owner just basically laughed at him. The new owner even told him that if you want to take it to court, they'll just drag it out and drain him financially. So Brian went to corporate, and corporate told him to go to the store owner. And the store owner said to talk to corporate. And then the police came, and they said it was a civil case. So basically, nothing happened. They ended up trespassing Brian from the store where his own collection still sat in. Bricks and Minifigures was doing a good job of keeping the story under wraps, and they were stealing his collection. But then a YouTuber named Reckless Ben saw the story and decided to step in. He drove 16 hours to help Brian get his collection back. And what happened next is probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen on YouTube. I highly recommend you go watch his video over on Reckless Ben. It was amazing. You know, I was a little skeptical going at first, watched it, definitely worth the watch. His YouTube video had fake raffles, a fake company called We Steal From Old People, small claims court, and even creating a cult. And Ben actually catching the CEO just flat out lying to his face about stealing this collection. But here's the part that matters most. When it looked like Bricks and Minifigures was finally about to lose in court, they closed the store down, basically making it so they couldn't get sued and stealing Brian's whole collection. One day after the legal paperwork was filed, the store was gone. Josh disappeared behind the franchise system. Corporate said it had nothing to do with them. $200,000 of Legos, just gone. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. That's just one bad owner, one bad store. It doesn't defy the whole company. And honestly, I understand that and I want to think that too. But here's the thing. Josh is able to do all this because of the way Bricks and Minifigures is set up. And when you start looking at how normal everyday customers get treated, people just trying to sell their set or find a good deal, you start to see a pattern. Raise your hand if you've ever walked into Bricks and Minifigures, looked at the price tag and went, wait, that's not right. You're not imagining it. The company sells itself on a place where LEGO fans can get a fair deal. Buy, sell, trade, and a great community, and a second home for collectors. But do some research and you'll see the same complaint popping up on every single subreddit. The prices are too high. Over on Reddit, I found a thread called Bricks and Minifigures pricing can be wild. Many people were sharing photos comparing Bricks and Minifigures pricings to what they see on Bricklink and eBay. Sets priced way above what they were actually worth, and it wasn't just sets, it was figures, parts, all kinds of stuff. So why does stuff like this keep happening? Every Bricks and Minifigures franchise has to pay the mother company 6% on whatever they sell, another 1% for advertising. That's 7% off top before they even paid rent or employees. So to actually make up for that cost, they'll charge you more when you're ready to buy, and they'll pay you less when you try to sell your collection to them. There's no way around it. That's why the prices feel so high. It's not one bad location, it's the model of the company. And speaking of paying you less when you sell, that's actually what I think one of the biggest problems with this company is. Because it's not just the price tags that are high. Even when you're trying to get paid from selling your collection, they'll give you a very small percentage of what your collection's actually worth. The whole reason a lot of people go to Bricks and Minifigure stores is to sell their collection. But what does that actually look like when you're standing at the counter trying to get a value on your collection? Bricks and Minifigure stores will give you a percentage of what your collection is actually worth, which is understandable because they do have to make a profit. But the percentage that they're giving you is crazy. One person in Woodbridge, Virginia, tried to sell a minifigure that was worth $45, and Bricks Minifigs offered them $10. Another customer said that they tried to sell brand new sets, and Bricks Minifigs wouldn't even offer them half off. One of the customers stated they tried to sell their sets, and the store even replied to that complaint, and you know what they said? They said we offer convenience. The word convenience is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. They know a lot of people are going to set up a Bricklink or an eBay account, list all their items, and answer questions for customers. Bricks and Minifigures sells you on the idea that you can just walk in and sell them their collection without having to do any of the heavy lifting. And they will use that convenience to lowball you. Think about how this plays out. You bring in a set and they give you maybe 20 to 30% of what it's actually worth in cash, and maybe 40% as store credit if you're being generous. Then they'll put it on their shelf and sell it either at or above market value. The gap between what they paid you and what they make off the set is where they make a lot of their money. Now picture the gap on that $200,000 Lego collection. So let's add this all up. A family loses their $200,000 Lego collection, and the Bricks and Minifigures that stole it just close it down to avoid any legal penalty. Regular customers get hit with prices above market, sellers get lowballed offers, and get told to be grateful for the convenience. And when anything goes wrong, the franchise points at corporate, and corporate points right back at the franchise. It's an endless loop. There's one last thing I want to say before I wrap this up. I want to be honest with you here. Not every Bricks and Minifigure store is the same store that sold $200,000 from a family. Some Bricks and Minifigures are actually run by people who care and want to do right by their customers. Bricks and Minifigures has over 300 locations and made $95 million in a single year. Clearly, some people are having good experiences. So it just makes you wonder why they're willing to risk their whole brand's image over $200,000. And just so we're clear here, my takes are based on my own research. I've only been to a couple Bricks and Minifigure stores and watched this one video, so I can only speak on what I've experienced. Your local Bricks and Minifigures might be really good compared to my experiences, and I hope that's the case because I wish I had a local store that I could go and buy Legos for market value. Here's what I keep coming back to. Bricks and Minifigures built a business where they're paying sellers as little as possible and overcharging the people that want to buy their product. And they set it up so things can't really go wrong, like $200,000 wrong. They can just point to their franchise owner and walk away clean. The theft in Oregon wasn't some random incident. It's what happens when you get a store owner that takes the same model the company runs on and goes way too far. And you deserve to know that before you walk in there and hand off your collection for pennies on the dollar. Let me know down below what your experience at a Bricks and Minifigure store has been and what you guys think about the $200,000 theft situation. If you want to know more about the $200,000 theft story, I'll put it right up here. You can click that one and go watch it next. But if you want to hear how Lego, the actual company, is charging you more, click this video right here where I talk about how Lego is shrinking their product but charging you more. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next one.